Hello, everyone. I am extremely excited to be here. This is the Connect Your Hero Fireside Chat conversation for our book club. I am Tonu Waya, the co-founder and also the chief marketing officer for Connect Your Hero. This has been something we've been looking forward to for the longest time, and we're extremely delighted to have a prolific speaker and also author here with us today to share his wonderful experience. Some of you guys have already seen his book on your fall reading lists. I have GaryCole here. But before we jump into that, we just want to take a second and pause and talk a little bit about the book club. So many of you guys have been asking us to bring a book club, which of course is all of our pastime favorite hobbies. I know for me, I grew up reading To Kill a Mockingbird and all of these books that really meant a lot to my soul. And for us to have the opportunity to partner up with an amazing group such as Audible through Amazon has been such a delight. So as you guys are digging into the books, we also want to give you an extra layer to a book club, giving you an exclusive all access pass to authors such as Gary. And so for our inaugural Q&A, we're delighted to have GaryCole, who is currently in the Midwest, but he would talk a little bit more about that coming up. And then we can dig deeper into what is the Connect Your Hero Book Club, what can you guys expect to get from it. As some of you seen on your amazing telly screens, you definitely have a lot of authors to choose from, a lot of book titles to choose from. This fall, we have everything from Alice in Wonderland to Harry Potter and everywhere in between. But of course, one of the books that many of you guys have selected to read is a book called Are We Old Yet?, which is literally authored by this man sitting in front of our face. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I would love to welcome to our fireside chat, Mr. GaryCole.
Barnu, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for all of you out there in the communities. I am so honored to be a part of this book club kickoff. I have personally never been part of a formal book club, but my wife has for years joined her friends and had book clubs, and she has loved it. And can I tell you this? She has said that her Saturday night book club is one of her favorite nights of the month. Now, I'm not sure how that should make me feel about the rest of the nights, but I am happy for her. And so, yes, I'm excited for you, and I hope that all of you have at least half as much fun as she has with her book clubs. And I will say this, she does say that it's better with snacks and maybe a little red wine on the book
Listen,
club.
that's true. I mean, I'm doing H2O right now, but yeah,
Yes,
we
yes.
definitely grab some snack, guys. Make sure you have some snack and some red wine, of course.
So thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and excited to answer some of the questions about me and the book that I wrote.
Fantastic. Well, we would jump right into the Q&A section of our time together here. And some of these questions came in from some of you who sent it in previously. And I would love to start off with, Gary, like what inspired you to become an author, and what's your favorite part of like the writing process?
Those two questions for me are actually related. I was not a writer. I had no desire to be an author, but I'm glad that I did. What really happened was I started off, and the journey started off with me doing research about how to grow older and how to do it well. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But the second question, what was it's related to the first answer. What is my favorite part? The favorite part was the research. I really enjoyed looking into all of the experts and what they were saying about how to grow older better, what to do, what to do physically and mentally and emotionally to be healthy, to be happy, and to live a long life. And that sort of fulfilled my curious nature, and I wanted to know how to do that. The second favorite part, can I have two favorite parts?
Oh yeah, you can have as many as you want.
The second favorite part is sharing it with others. I wrote a book, and that was certainly a big way that I share it with others, but I also blog twice a month. I write about topics related to aging. I do speaking engagements. I was at a couple earlier this week, and I do activities like this. So I'm really, really excited about this. It is one of my favorite parts about being an author. So yes, a year ago, I was not an author. I wasn't even a writer. Today that I am. And again, I'm so happy to be with you.
So the more of the story, guys, is write down your ideas. Literally a year from now in 2025, you can have a book published. That's the takeaway. I love it. Well, switching on, because I'm interested in the creative process. How do you decide from your perspective, which stories or ideas are worth turning into an actual literature that people can consume? I know many of us have thousands of ideas going through our brains. I know I just said a previous sentence that we should write all of our ideas down, but then there is a process, right, that you have to go through. How do you then decide which process is, I mean, which not process, which ideas are worth exploring and turning them into actual topic of a book potentially?
I'm going to answer your question,
Yeah.
but I'm going to comment on something you said earlier, and that is if anybody's out there that's interested in writing a book and have it done a year from now, great idea. I can tell you that it'll be one of the most worthwhile things that you do. And it is very possible. I will say this, if I can write a book and publish a book, so can you. So can you. Now, that sort of dovetails into what I want to, the answer to the question, and that is, what kind of topics do you decide to write a book about? And I would say that the answer to that question might be different depending on who you talk to and what type of book and what genre they write. But I'm going to offer three answers that I think can be kind of universal for most writers, and certainly it's true for me. First thing is, share a story that you know something about or that you want to learn about. And I know that might be obvious, but it's a great place to start. What do you know about and what do you like? Second thing is, maybe even more important than the first is, share a story that you're passionate about, not just know about, but you need to be passionate about, and I'll tell you why. You're going to be spending a lot of time. I spent a lot of time on this topic, writing it, and editing it, and then marketing it, and then talking about it. So you really need to love the topic. And yeah, the topic of aging is something that's very relevant to me and something I want to know about. So I was passionate about it. So it makes sense for me to spend time. Third thing, and maybe the most relevant to selling books, not that that's that important, but it is relevant, is choose a topic that will be important to a larger audience. A friend of mine wrote a book on Shakespeare. It's an excellent book, and he loves Shakespeare. But can I just say that it's not a large audience? So he didn't sell a lot of books, and that's fine. He's happy. He's glad he did it. And he would never write about anything else because Shakespeare is his passion. I can tell you that my book, from a sales standpoint, has exceeded my expectations because there's a large and growing audience that want to know, are we old yet? Let me just say that there's 11,000 people that turn the age of 65 every day in the United States.
Wow.
And by the year 2034, there'll be more people over 65 than there will be young people under the age of 18. So yes, a lot of people want to know, are we old yet? The book does give you an answer to that question. I'm going to give you a preview to the answer to the question, are we old yet? It depends. It depends on who you ask, when you ask them, in what country do you ask them? Are we talking about biological or chronological age? And why do you even want to know? It really is that nebulous in terms of the answer. The rest of the answer, you may want to read the book.
He left a little nugget there. Got all of us, just on our edge of our seats. I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Can you share a bit about your daily writing routine? Like how do you get the creative juices flowing for you for yourself?
Let me just say, not having been an author before, I started out with no routine, and that did not work very well. Then I developed a routine. I went for a walk in the morning, and then I came back and I spent 2 hours every day writing. And I can tell you that worked. Mark Twain once said that if it's your job to eat the frog, it's best to eat it in the morning. And I can tell you it was very effective for my writing style, and it really made for an effective day to accomplish more, eating the frog in the morning. So that was my routine. As far as quirky habits for creative juices, I don't know. I had some habits, but I don't know that they were be considered quirky. For me, it's difficult to force myself to be creative. Sit down and say, oh, be creative now. That wasn't something that I could do. What I could do, though, is sit down and do research. Sit down and do research. And then as I did research, my mind would start thinking about questions and answers. And that literally led to very, very successful writing sessions. Now, there were times that I had sparks of creativity. And let me share you those three things and three times that I did. Number one, driving. Number two, walking. And number three, taking a shower. And as it turns out, there's scientific research that validates those three activities create sparks of creativity in you. So I would always have with me a little notebook and a pencil. And yes, it is a little bit more difficult to take notes while you're driving and certainly while you're in the shower. But I am clean and I didn't get any car crashes, so I guess it worked. So yes, driving, shower, and walking were some of those times of creative juices flowing.
I love it. I love it. Listen, you can multitask. It's all good. Just make sure you drive safely, of course.
I
But yeah,
don't recommend that, by
best
the way.
some of the
Yeah.
best ideas, come to people at just any given time doing everyday routine. I know like musicians who would say like literally is might be going for a walk or maybe even doing a drive. That's when you tend to have like nothing going through your mind when you're just like by yourself. And of course, that's when things can come to mind. Very, very nice. Thank you for sharing that. Let's dig into the book a little bit. I know you've given a little crumbs here and there. You talked a little bit about what inspired you to write the book. I'm curious to know, like, what do you hope people will get out of this book? What's the ultimate goal here for you if you had to put that into words?
I want to dive just a little bit more into why I wrote the book because it's a good story and it's important to answer the second question. So 6 years ago, I went to my 45-year high school class reunion. I'll do the math for you to tell you how old I was because it's important to the story. I was 63 years old at the time. So as part of that weekend, that homecoming weekend, a group of us went to the homecoming football game. I loved Friday Night Lights back when I was in high school, and I loved it this night until at the end of the game, there was a group of the students that walked by. One of them looked up at us and pointed and yelled out for everybody to hear, "Look at all those old people." Now, my first reaction was to look around to see who they could be talking about. Certainly couldn't be me, but it was. I quickly realized that it was, in fact, me and my friends. And for the first time in my life, from the words of that 16-year-old young man, I finally asked myself, am I old? Am I old? And I wasn't comfortable with that question, not about because he asked it, but I wasn't comfortable because I did not know how to get old. Now, make no mistake, getting old is easy. You live your day, you go to bed at night, you wake up the next day, you keep doing that enough times. And at some point in time, some 16-year-old is going to look at you and say, you're old. And that's fine. But what I didn't know how to do is I didn't know how to age well. I didn't know how to age well. And for that, it takes knowledge and intent and a lot of work.
Hmm.
So what I did is I spent 2 years worth of research to know how to age well. And then I decided to share that with others in the form of a book. Now, second question. I know there's a long story, but I hope that makes sense
No,
for
it
you.
made perfect sense.
Yeah. So the second question, maybe even more important than the first, is what do I hope people get out of reading my book? Well, the book contains 35 chapters about aging. I actually call these chapters conversations because I write kind of like what I'm talking about with you today. I write very conversationally. And all of the topics are related to different things on aging, everything from the science of aging to why do old guys like me get grouchy? It's all those kinds of things that are topics of aging. Okay. But there's a general message throughout the book of encouragement that these years in our life can be good if we want them to be. And so really the message that I'm trying to say in the book is make the most of this time on your aging journey, regardless of what stage you are, make the most of this time on your aging journey. So that's what I hope people get from reading
Mm.
my book.
I love that. Make the most out of the time that you have. And there is a distinction between getting older and aging well.
Yes.
Because ultimately we're all going to go through that phase. But
Yes, we are.
how are you going through that phase? And
Exactly.
what does getting older in a well format looks like? I think it's important because of course there's a distinction between your journey and my journey and what wellness looks like, but there's a general theme of like, okay, are you emotionally well? Are you physically well? Like, what does that look like? And who can help us to get to those different levels? Very, very nice. Thank you for doing the research and helping all of us, even though to your point, you might be 16 years old now and you may not be feeling like this is relevant to you, but you know someone, or you probably most likely, if you're lucky and blessed enough to live, go through this yourself. So thank you for doing the legwork. Um, when you think about the role that books play in connecting people, can you speak a little bit, especially in a platform like ours, where we're all about fostering connection between different communities? Right now, of course, with the book club, you have people from all walks of life coming together, having a specific shared experiences. What role do you think literatures and books, play in connecting people? Or if you want to answer it in another way, how do you think it can foster a deeper connection?
That is a great question. And you may want to use that as a starting point in your book club because it sort of sets the tone for what it is you're trying to accomplish and what some of the goals can be. So let me answer it straight up. Books can play a significant role in connecting people, especially in a senior living community. Why? Because you're going to see the same people often, if not every day. And so you need something new to talk about, right? No, it's more than that. It's can become the center of the communication, not just in the book club, but maybe over lunch or dinner or sometimes spent socializing. The book can also lead to other topics that are bigger than the book. You can talk about aging in general. You can talk about life passion in general, or history, or current events, or whatever the topics of the book may lead to other things to talk about. And maybe most important, and this I think is very, very important, is it expands our world. Books and stories and messages allow us to learn and think about things beyond our daily lives. And I think by reading and engaging in books, I know for me and my wife, who is a prolific reader, we can engage in conversations that have nothing to do with our daily life, but because of the book and because of the stories and the messages, they do things. So for me, I love to learn new things. And I love hearing what other people have learned. So I hope the book club can provide some of that similar experience to you, that you can have fun and communicate together. It can be a source of communication, but it also can expand your world.
I love that, expanding your world through learning. And we say this all the time. It is never too late to learn something new. And we have books that can literally take us on different journeys and teaches us like so many different new skill sets or teach us about new cultures. No, thank you for highlighting those things, Gary. Now bringing it back home about who you are. I'm curious, who's Gary outside of, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and doing, what is it, being a frog, eating a frog,
Eat the frog.
eating a frog. Like, who are you outside of that? Yeah, help us to get a glimpse of the author behind the book a little bit more.
So I always have to start out this conversation by reminding everybody I was not an author. I do not consider myself an author, although yes, I wrote and published a book. Let me show it to you. I think it's in the thing, but I've got a copy of the book. Are we old yet? Casual conversation about aging. So I do spend a great deal of time eating the frog, but to me, it's no longer eating a frog. It's something I look forward to every day. I look forward to reading and researching about aging in the process. And I write about it 2 blogs a month, and I invite anybody who's interested in the aging process and learning about it. And by the way, it's not heavyweight reading. I have a good time when I'm writing. Come to our website, and I don't know if we're going to show that or anything, but it's GaryCole.com. You can sign up, and I can email you 2 blogs a month, and it'll be an interesting conversation. Beyond that, beyond the writing, I have a family that I love. I live as I tell everybody, I live vicariously through my 2 children, both in their 20s, who are going through the adulting process. My son's in New York City in medical school, and my daughter is living her best life in Chicago with her first job out of college. And I love just listening to them and what they're doing and how they're growing up and taking on that adulting part of their life. My wife and I like to travel. We travel to see our kids a lot, but we also like to travel internationally. We're in Puerto Rico last year, and next year, later this year, we're going to Curacao, down near South America. And we've also started to play pickleball because everybody over the age of 50 has to start playing pickleball.
And
So,
I would say even under the age of 30, because
yes,
pickleball was, I would say, the sport of 2023
that's it.
amongst all of the Gen Zs and millennials. So
And more. And
yeah.
finally, and maybe finally, I make a strong effort to stay connected with friends and family because this is very, very important in life and very, very important in the aging process. Matter of fact, research tells us that the number one way to live a happy, healthy, and long life is to have good relationships. Number one way. There's books been written about it. There's one, Richard Waldinger wrote a book about it, The Longest Study from Harvard University. So I make a really concerted effort to do that, to stay connected and to call people on their birthday, not just like them on Facebook. So those are some of the things that I do when I'm not writing or speaking.
What a well-balanced life, and ending on a beautiful reminder to all of us the importance of being connected, not just checking in once in a while or on Facebook, as you alluded to, but really checking in, taking the time to check in with others. Thank you so much for that. And I know for many of us here, we've never done a book club, or maybe some of you have. It can become quite daunting. And what we have done is we've created a nice packet. Gary has been very instrumental in that, using his expertise and tapping into other research and resources. And then obviously we've done our due diligence too as well in putting together a really great packet to really help foster the conversation, to dig deeper, going back into the previous question when we talk about the role that books play in our lives, how that can be a source of learning. And so we've created some conversational starter point, but by no means are we saying you should stick to them. If the conversation is going in a different direction, let it go, let it flow. Allow breathing room for us to get to know each other. But we just want to highlight that packet a little bit. And most of you, either you have access to it or your activities directors have access to it. And so I'm going to pass it over to Gary to speak a little bit about some of those questions that are very important for us to dialogue, whether it's through his book or other books that are on the list that you all are reading for the fall.
Thank you, Tornu. Yes, Tornu mentioned there are 13 books on the reading list, and feel free to pick one. And I would recommend that the group pick one, obviously, so you can all be on the same page.
Of course.
Read at whatever pace you're comfortable at, and then meet to discuss the book, whether it's weekly to sort of say, hey, here's where I'm at, and here's the updates, so on and so forth, or maybe like my wife does, makes that Saturday night the most important night of your life. And here's the other insight that she provided. Not everybody finishes the book, but they can still contribute. They still have a good time. Even if they've only read half the book, they can still enjoy the conversations. And on occasion, there may be somebody that comes that didn't even read the book, but they can still contribute, have a good time. But I will say this, reading the book does help. Now, we did prepare some questions for you, and some questions, general questions, some specific to fiction, some specific to nonfiction. And let me just share just a few of those. I think there's like over 20 questions, and you'll probably come up with some on your own as well. But I always like to start out at a very, very high level, like, did you like the book? And this can spur some interesting conversations because some of the books everybody's going to like, some everybody's not going to like. And then you're going to get those books that some like, some don't. And that's a great conversation to see what we liked and didn't like. Second thing is, how did the book make you feel? And I love that because now you're going to get some emotions out. I cried during that section. I actually had some people tell me that they cried during reading chapter 33 in my book, and I'll let you go there. But so you have emotional things, emotional reactions to book, and I think that's a great conversation to dive deep. Third question might be, did you learn anything? Did you learn anything from the book and anything that might change your daily life? And that could be from any book. And finally, this one could be fun. If you were the author, what would you have done to change the ending? What would you have? Some of the time we love the ending, sometimes we don't. But I think talk about creative juices. It could get the creative juices flowing to say, if I would have taken that, Romeo and Juliet, and I wouldn't have had Romeo or Juliet die, maybe she could have lived longer. Anyway, so what are those kind of things that you would have done to change the ending? And again, I wish you all very well. Have a great time. And by the way, one of the things I wanted to comment on in terms of senior communities surrounded by friends, one of the best reasons to be in a senior community is that you can be surrounded by those friends that you have. And this book club just allows you to bring them together and give you a common reason to enjoy each other's time together. So I wish
That
you
is
well, and I hope you have a great time.
amazing. I do have a quick question now that you brought up the ending of books. Would you say that is one of the most anxiety inducing thing to to go through as an author? Like, how do I finish this off? I would imagine a plethora of things will go through your mind, right? Whether it's like, did I say everything that I wanted to say in this book? This is my last opportunity. Or B, how should I end this thing where I don't get eggs thrown at my car when I drive to Walmart? Like, is that a part of your process too as well, out of curiosity?
I'm going to answer it two different ways. I'm going to answer it for me. My book's a little different. I had 35 conversations that weren't related other than the fact that they were aging. I literally finished my book on a summer day on my patio when I wrote a chapter and I said, I'm done. I'm done. So for me, it wasn't like, oh, I've got to bring it all together in a crescendo, although I did know it was going to be the final chapter. But for someone who's developing a story, like a fiction book, who has to make sure is they going to live or die, I am sure the ending is far more dynamic and important for the storyline. And let's just think about Romeo and Juliet. Oh my God, we can think about that, and they both, died. Well, maybe that would be a great one to say. Maybe they shouldn't have died. Maybe that isn't the ending that we wanted people to have. So I would say, Tornu, speaking for myself, it wasn't a big thing that created a lot of anxiety, but for others, I would say it probably does.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially if in the non-fictional world versus fictional world. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank you so much for sharing, Gary. As we come to a close, a quick reminder to everyone, especially staff, if you want us to structured your book club schedule, please let us know. Make sure you go through your tele schedule. You can update that or reach out to us directly via the Connect Care Hero support different channels, whether it's on WhatsApp or it's through email. Let us know. We'll be happy to assist. And of course, should you guys have any questions for Gary, whether it's related to his book or just general things that have come up to you even after listening to this interview and this wonderful time we've had with him, let us know. He will be available. We definitely want to do another looped around, maybe towards like the midpoint. We'll check in to see how everything is going along with everyone, and then try to decide if we want to do another meeting where you guys hopefully will have the opportunity of really having a live engagement with him. And of course, we would love to hear feedback. Like, did you like the ending of your book? Did you have a problem with chapter 33? Did you in Gary's book? Like, what's your takeaway? And so looking forward to that. But until next time, we hope you guys continue to foster a healthy community, continue to connect, and we'll talk to you later.